It wasn't me, ladies and gentlemen. It was not me. I had nothing to do with it. Welcome, everybody, to the Covering All Topics podcast, which is now the most hated podcast on the internet. And for those who have been living under a rock for the last couple of days, you'll be brought up to speed here pretty quickly. But I wanted to open up with that because I have found myself smack dab in the middle of a social justice war for which I had absolutely no part, had no skin in the game, nothing to do with. And I knew I would, at some point in my life, get into a social media war. I just never thought it would be something that I had absolutely nothing to do with. So, interesting 72 hours. Not as interesting as it was for you, AJ, but oh man, where do you want to start, man? Because what the hell?
Yeah. What the hell is right? I mean, definitely, I don't know where to begin. I guess we can begin with.
So let me start, because this from my perspective, I'd start getting my phone, my social media starts going super negative. And I see like our Instagram for Covering All Topics start like getting all this negative hate. I'm like, wait, did I miss something? So apparently a certain internet personality heard something and shared it with a bunch of other people, and we found ourselves in a situation. And now I'm just kind of bringing you up to speed from my standpoint. So I didn't even know who this person was. Literally had no idea. So I'm seeing this person being tagged. I had to literally Google search it, and that's only then when I saw the post, and I was like, initially I'm like, wait, what? It sounded like me. So I thought, like, did somebody like use a computer program and take my voice and like just do a troll? Like, because they have those fake videos out there, they have fake audios out there that they can do that. So my immediate thought was like, wait, somebody's fucking with me, right? And it wasn't until later that I determined, like, okay, it wasn't me. There was some people who were like texting me like, no, it's not this. We know what happened. But I start getting like direct message on my personal Instagram, on the Covering All Topics Instagram. I'm like, what the hell? So then I get pissed at you because I'm like, what is this kid doing? I had no idea the scope and scale of what this would turn into at the time. But like, just the fact that I was getting some messages that I had absolutely nothing to do with, I'm like, all right, what the hell, AJ? So you were MIA. So I didn't hear anything from you. I had no idea that you even did this other podcast. And I was just completely dumbfounded by what I was saying. So for those of you who don't know, there was a podcast that AJ was a guest on, having nothing to do with this, because quite frankly, if that happened on this one, we wouldn't have allowed that to go to air, but that's neither here nor there. Where some word choice were used to describe something that was probably not the best, and then all hellfire rained down. So you wanna take over here?
Yeah. So I'll do my best explaining what played out. So I was a guest on somebody else's podcast. Being that it was somebody else's podcast, I was walking bare. I was kind of going about my daily activities. I think I was even making eggs at one point. I was just kind of doing my thing and not paying. Like right now, I'm facing my computer. I have my notepad. It's definitely easier for me to stay on track. So I was just kind of talking about whatever, sharing my thoughts. It got brought up about the modern age of riding and social media, and I was expressing my views on kind of the whole Instagram versus reality thing. And I was explaining how I have a concern for kids growing up that are, they look up to these Instagram guys, which that's fine. I mean, I think that's what I may or may not have, explained. And even if I had explained it, it wasn't included in the 20-second clip that was put on Instagram. Is that if you want to go and not race and create an Instagram and get famous that way, by all means. Like I at times wish I didn't have to race. There's a lot of times where racing is not fun. And ultimately what it boils down to is riding a dirt bike is fun. and I try to keep the scope of I ride a dirt bike because it's fun, plain and simple. Anyhow, I was speaking on the fact that most of these Instagram influencers, a lot of them, I think the majority of them may not be technically sound enough for me to be comfortable with kids emulating their styles after these guys. And it's a benign point. I mean, half of the stuff we're going to say on the podcast may be benign. You know, it's not like I'm going to defend that point to the end of me. It was just kind of something I said in passing. And I went on to make a point about how there are a handful of Instagram influencers that are very technically sound. And then I used this individual as an example of somebody that was not. I used some really harsh,
some unsavory words.
Yeah, you know, and I don't know him personally, which is that's one thing that bums me out the most about that quick decision that I made, was that it came off as though I was talking really badly about somebody I don't know at all. You know, they might be a great person, they may not be, but I don't know. And
just playing devil's advocate, like if I heard that and I were him, I'd be pissed too. I really would. And for what it's worth, he didn't call you out. He didn't really say anything negative about you at all. It really was the army of, I told myself I wasn't going to be too derogatory. His army got together, and really the biggest impact was from his army. It wasn't from him directly, which, and you know what, is as much as I don't agree with it, putting the whole thing out there for the entire world, like I could kind of see his point of view, like where he was coming from and why he did it.
And granted, if he only heard the clip that was put on his Instagram, which chances are that is all he heard, you know, I'd find it very unlikely that somebody would go through the trouble of finding the link, listening to the whole thing, giving me the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
You know, 99% of people out there are going to hear the 20 I don't know how long it was, the short little clip, and you know, they're going to have feelings about that clip, which, you know, I get it. And hopefully this person's at the race this weekend. I would love to speak to them in person, just, you know, apologize to their face. If they want to avoid me, by all means, they can avoid me. I think that's, you know, it's none of my business. I'd like to get along with everybody. And that's why I was more upset with myself than anything, because I guess I didn't realize the scope of, like, and that podcast was just starting out, you know, like they don't even have nearly the subscribers that we do. Not that we have that many yet either.
I think that's what caught me. Like when I was trying to wrap my head around all this right off the bat, obviously being dragged into it personally, for which, again, I'm going to reiterate that I had nothing to do with it. I hadn't talked to you about it, didn't even know you did it. And it took me a while to get up to speed with it all. So as I was bringing myself up to speed and trying to get a grasp on everything, I'm like, how the hell did this get out? Like, when did that, this got out, when did that podcast even take place?
That was part of my confusion too. That podcast was recorded weeks ago, and I never listened back to it. You know,
weeks ago. See, I didn't even know that. So it was a while ago, and somebody just happened to find it.
This was, I'm pretty sure, before the season even started, and I never listened to it back. So God knows what I said. You know, so when I clicked in and listened to that, at first I thought it was fake too, because I was like, holy cow, like this sounds pretty brutal. And then I went back and listened to the clip, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, because me being me, I obviously knew what I was trying to say. Anybody that knows me knows exactly what I was getting at. But yeah, I just got to be a little more careful about my words, because like you said, if somebody said that about me, I wouldn't be too pumped myself. So,
but you know, here's the thing, here's the frustrated thing, and here's the reality. And I really struggled with how I wanted to approach talking about this, because part of it is anger, part of it's disgust, part of it's like just disbelief. And here we are in 2019. Your opinion could cost you your career, right? In certain contexts. And not only is that ludicrous, but we're talking about people. I mean, anybody who followed this, the little minions were hell bent on destroying your life, which is the most disgusting, vile, ridiculous thing I could possibly imagine. I mean, like, I'm watching this unfold. What you said, you didn't attack his family. You didn't attack his character. It's not like you did anything egregious. And while I understand that people would be offset by that and like it left a bad taste in people's mouth, I certainly can understand that. But for people to go scorched earth, hell bent on ruining your life, what the actual fuck?
Yeah, that's the scary part, is that thank God my sponsors and the group of people around me know the type of person that I am and stood behind me, because I can now see how all these celebrities and anyone that's ever gotten themselves into trouble over social media, like, now I get it. Because all it takes is, a couple thousand of these people to be, not even a couple hundred of these people to be direct messaging, each and every one of my sponsors. And then if the sponsor didn't truly know,
how sad is that?
Yeah.
Because look, the fact of the matter is, this podcast that you appeared on and said these things, for all intents and purposes, that it was absolutely no different than you just being on the phone with a friend, other than the fact that it was later uploaded as a podcast. But I mean, yeah, it's out in the internet for anybody to digest, but the audience was extremely small. I mean, I can't imagine that would ever see more than a couple hundred people, and that's not an excuse. I'm not making excuses for you, because like we already talked. What you said was stupid, and there's other ways to frame it. But at the time, how could you possibly? Why would you possibly have changed it? You were talking to a friend, and I mean, for anybody who's out there who had that much of a problem with what you said, it's not like you went on Race Day Live or a post-race interview and put this kid on blast for an entire country of people to hear in live time. It's the scope that you reached in that podcast paled in comparison to what ended up happening. And it's not an excuse.
No, and if I had even had a second to listen to that over before I gave him the A-OK to put it out, I would have heard that back and been like, "Ooh, you know what? Let me take that out." Because if I had listened to that back, I would have realized that I slipped up. But I didn't know, and then I forgot about it. So yeah, it was bizarre. And one thing I guess we can take from it too is like, and I would say the most frustrating part was just the raining down of attacks from all of these ignorant people. And I think the what puts it into reality as well is this happened 2 days before I went to Oakland, which is in California, which is where this individual is from. So I expected, I was thinking all these crazy things like, oh man, I have to have somebody guarding my bike. Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to get sucker punched? What, all these things are kind of going through my head. Not one single person came up to me with a negative comment. Not one.
So that's actually a really good point, because while this whole thing was playing out, and I mean, because I was personally involved and you're my friend and partner, I monitored it. I was obsessed over it. I never found myself in that situation before. And it's really, it causes a lot of anxiety. It really does. And it wasn't even me, really. Right. But that's what
I saw it causing Allie anxiety. Even last night, I got home off the plane and she's swiping through Instagram trying to argue this one guy back. And I was like, because I've experienced this before, maybe not in the scale. And I'm just like, Allie, just leave it alone. I mean, if somebody is going through the time to write these nasty comments, you're never going to convince that individual otherwise. It's just below you.
It's literally sickening. I'm going to tell you what, we're not going to call anybody out. We're not going to have anything negative to say about any particular individual. But let me tell you something. If you're one of these people who go out of your way, that get so bent over your Instagram hero getting a negative opinion expressed about them, where you feel the need to try to destroy somebody else's life or destroy their attitude or destroy their mood or put any sort of other negativity on them after they've already been called out by a pretty big Instagram person, you're a loser. Let me say that again. You are a loser. I don't care what what happens to this podcast as a result of me saying that, but you have to be a complete sociopathic loser to do that. And that's not just you. So let me back up here. You see this play out across Instagram all the time. And I never, ever understood this Instagram gang mentality. I never did. I look at it, you see it a lot with the Instagram models and all the wannabe boyfriends stick up for them as if that somehow they're going to vindicate themselves and prove themselves to these girls. And they're going to say, oh, you want to come out to my crib in California? We could kick it all weekend, and then hook up with them. Like,
I think ultimately that's what these kids want, is they want approval from that individual. So, and what you're seeing is anytime I'd get a negative comment, I wouldn't say everyone, but the majority of 90% of, I would click in, and this demographic is 12 years old to 18 years old. So, you know, they're just insecure young kids that are, I think, trying to get approval from this individual by just bashing me, which it's sad and it's scary, and it makes me, that concerns me, you know, for when I have a kid. Like, man, social media is just cutthroat. Like, that's scary.
It is a nightmare, and it's you have to walk the tightrope with what you say, and that is the most disturbing part about all this. Like, come on, man.
And that's the reason why I was so bummed about it, was because I didn't want to be put on that same level of people thinking that I was that one causing and stirring up the negativity, because I never want to be looked at that way. You know, I'll give everybody the time of day. I'd like to think myself as being really positive all the time. This podcast, the goal of this podcast is to be uncensored and to be real. But I also think at the same time, there's a way to do that without directly calling out people. So even if I had that opinion, you know, either change the word suck and terrible to other more objective words that properly describe the person, or just don't say the person's name. You know, there's ways to get the point across much better than what I did.
I think that's important. We're not trying to call anybody out. We're really not. I don't want to put anybody on blast in this thing. You know, when we're talking specific race breakdown, it's hard not to mention people by name, but we're not out here trying to tear people's careers down. But yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I think you gotta, in the future, just exercise some discretion, and lesson learned on your part for sure. But also, you know, that's not something that I would ever let. You know, producing this thing, I would never let out. So I think there's lessons to be learned everywhere. But you know, I think it was funny. Okay, so being this was my first little experience with the Instagram war. I went through, it was an emotional roller coaster. It really was. It was kind of funny. And I mean, you handled it way better than I did. I was ready to show up at somebody's door with a baseball bat, and I wasn't really even involved. And so, but that went, you know, very quickly from like, all right, let's look at this practically. Look at the demographic and the people are actually talking shit, you know? And it's like, okay, look, just look at where you are, dude. And look where I am.
And that's what one of my main sponsors had to say about it is they said, you know what? Every one of the people that are commenting on our things and messaging us, and we're seeing comment on your stuff, when you click into their profile, they said they're the exact type of person that we wouldn't want using our product anyway. So that's kind of where they defended me. And thankfully, you know, that's the case. But
you know, it's thank God that there's some rational people out there making decisions. And I don't understand where this plays out across our society every single day, across all different genres of professions. And you see it in the media, you see it in Hollywood, you see it everywhere, where a person makes a mistake, and one mistake should not cost them their livelihood. I mean, think about everybody, like the Megyn Kellys, maybe she was a bad example. I'm not trying to put any divisive things out there right now, but just you know, the Kevin Harts,
Kevin Hart is one mistake, probably a good example. Yeah.
And why is there no path to redemption? Why isn't an apology acceptable? Why and more so, why is it doesn't everybody take it upon themselves to not rest until they see that person in ruin? That's the most disturbing thing to me, is that it's one thing to let somebody know that they've made a mistake and let somebody know that what you've said hurt that another person or affected another person negatively. That's fine. I think there's a lesson to be learned in that. But to go from that to ruining a person, like I'd love to be able to just pick the brains of these people and say, hey, where do you get off?
Where
Not
do you
only
get off?
calling, yeah, what's the big idea? Where do you get off going from defending your Instagram hero to then criticizing personally your nemesis, in this case you, but moreover then finding your fiance's page and commenting on, like,
My dog's page.
What in your head? What makes you think that that's normal? I really want to know. I'd love to sit down across from one of these people and be like, what went wrong? What went wrong in your life that the only thing that you have to do to vindicate your Instagram boyfriend is to go scorched earth on AJ Catanzaro? And I mean, it's still happening. You couldn't post something right now without somebody being a little jester and trying to bury you still. I don't get it.
So
let me reiterate. Hold on. Let me reiterate. For anybody who's unclear about my point of view on this, I think what AJ said was stupid. I've had the conversation with him about how he could have said it better. I think that there is a lesson to be learned here, and I think he learned it. But let's circle back and say that what occurred, like the disproportionate response, is, in my opinion, way worse.
Yeah. Yep, I would definitely say so. And it's not even that, like, I was purposely trying to bash on that person. I was making a point that really had nothing to do with them, and I messed up. It wasn't like I had, malicious intent like all of these other people do. So that was definitely frustrating. And I think what the advice I can give other people as well that are, getting bullied online or anything like this is just don't worry about it. Like, one thing you could tell the person, and what I've been telling everybody, is if you have an issue with me and you'd like to discuss it, you know where I'll be. I'll be at every single Supercross race. If you live in Dallas, I'll, come see me in Dallas. And of course, the irrational first thought of most of these people is, oh yeah, you want to fight, huh? No, that just because I want to talk face to face and say I want to talk face to face does not mean I want to fight you. But what it means is
AJ is 150 pounds. He doesn't want to fight anybody. He wants to ride his dirt bike. Like, let's be real. Come on. Be an adult.
What it means is that you'll come up to me, and if we have even a 5-minute conversation, you're going to leave that conversation with a different view of me. If you can be rational and sit there and have an adult conversation. The problem is most of those people can't. Most of those people will never come up and say anything. I hope that I could have a couple conversations with a handful of these people this weekend in San Diego. Maybe even with the individual himself. I think he'll be there. Will he come up to me? I highly doubt it. If he doesn't, I'll search him out, and I'd like to.
The thing is, I don't think he will. If he does, that would be excellent. And I think that would demonstrate a lot of.
That would be amazing of him if he did that. I think that would show really great character.
Yeah, but on the same time, let's be diplomatic here. I don't think he's an asshole for not coming up to you either.
That's on me, technically, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it was my bad, so it's technically on me to go find him.
Yeah, it's not up to him, right? Exactly. So if you guys somehow connect and talk it out, great. That's fine. I will say just an opinion. And look, I'm not mentioning anybody's name. I don't want to put anybody on blast, but like, I think the point was made. You know what I mean? Like the post, there's a lot of posts, and it just so happens that this post is up for the longest without any other posts after. And like I really I started to question the motives of the post after a while. I'm like, okay, I think everybody gets it. Like, okay, you know, like maybe
Not to mention, I
maybe
apologized it through direct message instantly. I sent an apology, then I sent another one, and then I sent, "Hey, I'd really like to talk to you in person." And then I kept writing bump, 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 like I was trying to sell some used car wheels on a forum, like just to make sure that there was no way he didn't see this message pop up. And he never responded. So, you know, that makes me question their motives for sure. But who knows? I mean, until I
can't
have a
imagine.
conversation.
I mean, I can't imagine getting that pissed about that kind of comment. Like, I look, whatever. He did, and that's fine, and we're gonna move on from that. But I mean,
we'll have some updates for you guys next week on how that conversation went, if I can find this individual. But yeah, we can move on.
Can we? I don't know if we can.
No, we can't. Let's talk about this for another hour.
And the reason I say that is because I don't want the point that you were trying to make get too washed up by all the drama that happened after. And I think it's a good point. And we could just say, we'll cut off all discussion about the Instagram war right now and move on to your point, which, if I may do the Cliff Notes version of the point you were trying to make, I'd be happy to do that. Would you like me to? And then you could fill in the blanks?
Sure, please do.
So what I got out of it, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't waste my time to go back and listen to the whole podcast. I know you were trying to get people to do that to add some clarity, but I didn't. I knew the point you were trying to make. I already knew the opinion that I had on the whole situation, so I didn't feel the need to do that. But knowing you and knowing what you preach and knowing what your livelihood is in the off season, what I got out of it was this: you, as a technical master, you see your job is to get kids who are interested in furthering their race background and getting the fundamentals down to improve their riding. And when you see kids, and we've talked about it on this podcast before this whole dramatic situation played out, you get kids who show up to your classes and you ask what they're here for, and they say, I want to learn how to scrub. I want to learn how to whip. You know, right. they're there for the flash, and they don't. Their focus isn't on the technical fundamentals. And I think, you know, it's an important point that your academy teaches, is that without the fundamentals, without the technical basis for doing this stuff, you put yourself at risk for hurting yourself, hurting your bike, developing bad habits. And what is happening now is that there's such a push. Like, look, the fact of the matter is, Instagram isn't rewarding people for fundamentals. They're not rewarding, like, the Instagram, the social media isn't drawn to,
and that's
people
why I like to
teaching
be clear
fundamentals.
It's at no fault of the influencer. You know, they're just putting up cool, flashy videos, which great. You know, I think a lot of people thought I had a problem with that, which I absolutely do not.
Yeah, before I forget, like, I don't. There's nothing wrong with this individual's content. Like, I went back and
I watched a lot.
I thought a lot of his content is cool. Mm-hmm. And for the record, I don't think he sucks. I mean, I know you have a feeling about the technical aspect of riding in some of those situations, and that we'll get to that. But for the record, I don't think he sucks. And when I heard he say he sucks, I'm like, I don't know, AJ. Like, he's way better than me. And I think that's what a lot of people got bent about, is like, well, I mean, man, if he sucks, I really suck. And so people kind of took it as a personal thing like that. It's like, wow, if that's your basis of sucking, then you must really think I suck, which isn't the case. I mean, you know as well as I do, he doesn't suck. Like, he obviously has enough skill and enough balls to do what he does, which, hey, power to him. But back to the case about the technical fundamentals, is where you see it going wrong and affecting you is when kids are, and look, we're talking about kids, people. We're not talking about grown men who who want to go be dummies on their bikes and hurt themselves. Like we've all done that too. But talking about kids who are on social media and don't know better, exactly, and are more impressionable, and they see the notoriety and the fame that can come with doing nasty scrubs and just having cool content. They see the notoriety that gets you, so they focus on trying to do the flash as opposed to setting up good fundamentals for the skill. And that was really your point, was that they're almost I don't want to say that there needs to be some sort of accountability on behalf of these guys. They don't owe anybody anything. I mean, no. They're a product of a system that is rewarding them for cool shit, which, hey, that's cool. That's fine. But what I think needs to
I just think the kids could be educated on the fact, and that's what I ultimately want to do. And that point was completely lost because of the adjectives and the words I chose. So, right. and what we just explained makes more sense of that, and it is what it is. Like, I watch the person's videos sometimes. I think they're cool sometimes. Are they the most technically sound rider in the world? Absolutely not. Does he suck? Absolutely not. Because exactly what you just said, if I consider him sucking, then holy cow, every poor kid that I teach sucks in that case. And that's not the truth. So definitely poor choice of words. But I hope people listening to this podcast now know at least what I was trying to get at and what I did a very poor job of getting at. But yeah, I mean, you did a good job explaining it. So
yeah, it was really off-putting to see direct messages to my personal account that were, "Are you scared? Am I scared of what? What am I scared of? What?" It's like like the intimidation that like my personal account got, just because. And what I found funny about the comments, and damn it, there were some funny comments, but there were some also really shitty comments. And it was so funny, like the people who just got so hard on the bandwagon, where it was like, "Oh, what podcast is this?" And people would say, "Oh, it was their most recent podcast about A2." I was like, "Okay, dude. So you didn't listen to the podcast. B, you didn't have any clue what you're talking about, and now you're telling people to go look at the wrong thing." What's funny is that, I mean, regardless of where the podcast was, people thought it was ours, and our viewership or our listenership for the last episode like quintupled. So yeah, of course, it's a lot of people that were trying to find out where you said it. But look, we got messages from people who said, "Hey, I found your podcast because of this, and I ended up listening to a bunch of your episodes."
Yep, I got a lot of that too.
Look,
so.
I was in like a little tiff with a kid on Instagram, and I wasn't trying to engage anybody, really. I really wasn't. But I just said, like, hey, sometimes that negative publicity is just as good as positive publicity, because out of the thousands and thousands of people that came in and listened to our last podcast, hopefully there was a couple that maybe liked it, maybe stick around for the next one. And so maybe it won't be all bad, but the idea that a few of these people were hell bent on, "Oh, you might as well quit now. This is the worst podcast ever," like spamming our iTunes with negative comments. I'm like, bro, first of all, me personally, I've put a lot of work into this thing. So I was getting furious. Like these kids were trying to tear it down for something that they had absolutely no idea. This social justice warrior Instagram gang mentality of people that would do anything in their power to just ruin somebody else. Like, I was like, what is going on with this? So I was like, I felt personally attacked. I'm like, damn it, I've been working hard on this thing, and I'm not going to have it dragged down by you. So, hey, luckily, guys, iTunes has a pretty good policy about spam negative comments, for which were reported and dealt with. So thank you for that. And look, we're on this podcast where there will be times that we're going to be critical, and I think we need to be. I mean, you're in a pro class where the margin of error is so tight, and there's going to be rides that we like. There's going to be rides that we don't like. There's going to be races that we like, races we don't like, and circumstances that happen that we care for and don't care for. And without the ability to express those opinions freely, you guys are not going to have anything to listen to other than just watch the broadcast and just take it like everybody else takes it.
Right.
You know, here we are. We're trying to offer you something that's a little more in depth, and you know, I know you got a lot of shit for not making a main this season, and you know that obviously is frustrating for you. But look where we're at. To people saying that, I mean, you had Justin Bogle and Dean Wilson in an LCQ this weekend. That says something. And the circumstances of this season are like we haven't seen before, at least not in recent memory. So I think we could put the Instagram thing to bed, and that might be a good segue into this weekend's recap because, you know, like I said, Justin Bogle, Dean Wilson, two fast guys in LCQ. That leaves 2 spots for privateers to try to make it in.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I think the whole argument where it's like, oh, hey, make a main and then talk, that's stupid. That really is. I mean, there's no comprehension of, you know, the talent in that class and what it actually takes to be in a main event. I think, at least in my opinion, this year, more so than any other year than I can remember, it is an accomplishment to make a main event.
Yeah. Yeah, and it always has been. I mean, it's an accomplishment to make the top 40. The top 40 guy, those are the top 40 450 riders in the world. You know, and ultimately none of that even really matters. I mean, we could sit here and talk about whatever we want to talk about, and my credentials and my results don't matter. I mean, I have just as much knowledge as the next guy, if not more, on this sport. So, and clearly, me balancing my business and my riding has affected my results in the past year. But I did that knowing that it would kind of affect my results. Like I want to focus on my business. I enjoy doing that. And I like showing up to the races and there being no pressure and me just going out and having fun. Of course, for myself, I always want to go out and do well. And for me, doing well, no matter how stacked the class is, will always mean making the main event. That's kind of where I've set my thermostat, and I'll never accept anything less. But people would dream to just make the top 40. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fast guys this weekend that didn't even make the top 40. It's just a really, really, really fast clash this year. And I qualified 33rd, which for me is not good. But if you looked at the times, from 33rd up to 20th was less than a second. And that's never the case. Usually you could consider that 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds. But
so
where do you want to start?
I haven't talked to you other than in exchanging some text messages. You know, you were pretty MIA this weekend, and for good cause. I mean, you basically went on completely do not disturb. You were trying to limit distractions with all the drama in the background. So I totally get it, and I think anybody would. So part of that was I had our pep talk conversation with you on Saturday morning, and that was basically the last time I talked to you, other than last night. So we kept a lot of what we would have talked about. We reserved it for the podcast. So I want to start with, you mentioned you had some bike issues, and then I see the clip of your vlog, whole shot device issue. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, and this is a frustrating thing as well, because I've had this happen in the past. And for those of you that don't know, what a whole shot device is, basically this button on your fork guard where you can compress the fork, lock the button to a ring that's on your fork tube, and it holds your forks in a lower position so that when you come off the line on the start, you don't wheelie. Two reasons that this problem is kind of a trend for pros is that one, our suspension in Supercross is ridiculously stiff. So that's adding a heck of a lot more pressure than normal on the chintzy little plastic fork guard. And two, our whole shot devices are set way lower than the average person. So my front fender is basically touching my front tire. So not only do you have stiffer suspension, but you have to compress that suspension almost down to the tire. So any of the factory guys will have braces on the bottom, metal braces, brackets holding their fork guard, bracing them so that they can't stretch. Because what happened is the circle where that bolt goes in down at the bottom of my fork guard, there's so much pressure being applied that it pulled itself into an oval. So now my fork guard's dancing around. So, I couldn't set my whole shot device, and it's getting bound in my forks as my forks are trying to compress while I'm riding. So
you had this issue last year. You had a metal bracket fitted. What happened to that one? You couldn't just swap it over?
I think those ones fit still with the 19s. That plastic does fit, but I couldn't find that metal bracket. And if Jeremiah, my mechanic, is listening to this, I was going to say he's pulling his hair out, but he doesn't have any hair to pull out. He's got to be cringing listening to this, because he did a great job making a bracket. And then I think what happened is once the thing, went MIA, I just this year assumed that it wouldn't happen again, which was dumb of me. It lasted the first few rounds with no issue. I thought it wouldn't become an issue. And it was just something so silly, and I lost it. So this year, I guess with so many things going on as a privateer, you overlook maybe some of the small details that can end up being so darn important. So I went online, ordered a new brace. So that'll be in Wednesday. We should be good to go for this weekend. So I had to deal with that in the heat race. And then in the LCQ, we still had that problem because there's not enough time in between the heat and the LCQ, especially being second heat race. You have no time. And then in the LCQ, I lost the seat bolt, and my side number plate fell off. Not completely off, which I wish it did, but it fell down. It was getting stuck in my tire and caught on my leg. And
that's such a bummer.
First thing people say is, well, you can ride through that. And yeah, I tried to ride through it, but what people have to realize as well is on a Supercross track, things become really dangerous really quick. And, you could see bounce and jump. And if that plastic gets caught in the wrong spot, next thing you know, your bike locks up, or that fork guard does something funky. I don't know. It just, not to mention it messes with you mentally. So it was,
who was it
a
couple weeks? Who was it? Was it round 1 or 2? Where their fork guard was just like hanging on by a thread. I don't think it was the whole shot device fork guard, but it was at Nichols. I thought it was a Yamaha. It was either Nichols, Harrison, or Ferrandis. I think
might have been Ferrandis, but I forget. Yeah, and that happened to me at Phoenix when I got taken out in that first corner pileup. I broke my opposite end, the right side fork guard, and it was hanging off all types of funny. So, yeah, such a little part can be catastrophic to your night, I guess. I mean, and the thing is, once the night show starts, you just don't have time. So when a problem like that happens, it's not like we can pin it back to the pit and get our spare, because we don't have a spare.
Especially between the heat and the LCQ. I mean, you're pretty much just lining up for the LCQ.
You get off the race, you don't even go back to the pits. You stay down there, and then you get right in staging, and you're lining up for that next race. So, yeah, that was frustrating, but I was just kind of happy to get away from that track unscathed. It was just like, if this is a nice segue to start talking about the night and track conditions, it was just another really extremely challenging track.
It looked it.
And it wouldn't have been if it hadn't broken down the way that it did. In fact, like on track walk and watching the first 250 practice before it got rutted up, it looked like a blast. But then as it just started to break down and get rutted, and the whoops just were insanely difficult.
Yeah, and they mentioned that on Race Day Live about how Oakland typically does break down like that. So I think riders were anticipating it deteriorating like it did. But that is one of those variables. Talk about bike issues in the whoops. What about Justin Bogle?
Oh my God. I just rewatched. So I saw it in person. I caught the end of it in person, but from where I was, I couldn't really see it. The replay, and this is only funny because he didn't get hurt, but how hysterical is that
I know.
his back fender just gets stuck in the dirt and his seat's sticking straight up?
I know. It did look gnarly. I mean, I didn't when it happened in real time. I think that they didn't show like how it actually happened. They just showed him picking up his bike and the exhaust and everything just ripped to shreds. But then they showed him go through the whoops and getting tail heavy, and you saw it kind of in slow motion. Literally, it was pretty funny. I'm glad he got away from that.
Right, because Justin, I mean, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but Justin's one that's had some tough luck the past couple of years as far as injuries go. So happy that he kind of got away from that one. But yeah, watching that, and I put it right before this podcast. I had it up on the TV, and they had a slow motion replay, and then I put the slow motion in slow motion on my TV, so it was just like crazy step by step slow mo. And what actually happened, and I was guilty of this, and I think a lot of people were, is the whoops were so gnarly that you would come into them kind of just squeezing your butt cheeks, and you would lean back. And a lot of times leaning back in the whoops, especially a long set like that, is not what you want to do. So he started getting further away from the front of the bike. If you watch it 4 or 5 whoops in, his front tire misses one because of that. And then once it missed one, forget about it. All of a sudden he was just like a teeter-totter.
Right. So was the traction tricky through the whoops? I think they were mentioning that where you didn't know if it was going to bite or not, but once it bit, you really dug in.
Yeah, well, and it was another case of them breaking down, but also not being quite soft enough to where they were forgiving. They were hard enough to where when your tire hit, they were going to send you where they wanted to send you, and it was very hard to anticipate which direction that was going to be. I tell you, like my whoop confidence coming into this season. Well, I didn't really know where I stood because I didn't really ride, but in the past, like whoops have kind of been my strong point. And without riding during the week right now, I show up every weekend. It's hard to get my confidence back in the whoops when they're this difficult every weekend because I'm just struggling. What it seems like worse and worse and worse. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was hard to get a consistent pass through those things. And you saw it especially in the 450 main. They were just totally destroyed. You had some guys jumping them down the center, which that's extremely difficult. And guys like Webb and Muskin were doing a great job of somehow making that look fairly easy.
They made it look effortless. Yeah.
Which it is.
Like that was, yeah.
Holy cow. It's so hard to do what they were doing. And yeah, those bikes maybe make it slightly more easy, but no, that takes a lot of technique, a lot of throttle control, a lot of timing. And then you had guys like Tomac, Bogle even was doing a great job of skimming them in the main. Baggett, there was a handful that were just sacking up, so to speak, and just skimming right across the tops, which seemed very physical. And then you had Barsha kind of doing the same, which I think this is where Barsha struggled in the main, is he wasn't really able to make it work, but he was still trying to muscle through it. And I think Barsha would have been better off if he just opted to jump.
Well, it might have been a function of the tailbone injury, maybe, just purely comfort. There was definitely some situations, at least observing him, where he looked like he was riding a little conservatively, and I don't blame him. I mean, that's a tough injury to have, to try to seat bounce, to try to really hammer it. I mean, and that's a tough one. So you could kind of see that, and maybe that was just a function of that. But back to the LCQ, what ended up happening to Wilson in his heat race? Do you know?
He crashed on the first lap, which they didn't show on TV. I didn't catch it in person. And then I don't know what happened after that. I saw him on the last lap, and he was out there still, but he was just kind of cruising around in last place.
So it looked like, and when they panned back to it in the start, it looked like he got hung up with somebody. And what I thought, it looked like or at least when I watched it live, it looked like he had tweaked his knee, and I thought, oh shit, something happened to his knee, because it kind of immediately pulled off. But then, like you said, he stayed out there and finished. So I was curious as to what ended up actually happening, that he didn't get back in charge.
And oddly enough, he stayed out there. Most guys, if they knew they were going to be last, they would go back to the pits, give themselves a couple minutes to fix what they needed to fix, rather than wasting some laps in the heat race that didn't need to be spun if he was just in last place. So yeah, I don't know. But speaking of first turns, I wanted to speak about the way that was kind of structured, the way that was set up. Because right off the bat, was it, I think, 250 Heat 1 where McElrath got taken out by...
Yeah, talk about people who got lucky. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. That could have been a lot worse.
Extremely lucky. So now let me explain to you guys really quick what played out there, because, I watched it over a couple times just to be sure. McElrath having the whole shot, yeah, you have control, and the goal in a start is to pinch other people off. But you have to kind of also look at it this way, like, you don't really want to be pinching people off in the air. I think he should have left a little bit more space than he did, but also with that being said, what the heck is his name? Enzo Lopes. He should have expected that and anticipated that, and in turn, he should have hit the brakes and not doubled that jump. Because what you saw in the 250 main event is Cincerello was, if you guys replay it, was in the exact same position that Enzo Lopes was in, and Adam decided to slam the brakes and go roll, because he knew that if he jumped, the leaders were naturally coming across to pinch them off, and it was just kind of the natural flow of the track coming off of the first turn, and Adam knew enough, luckily, to hit the brakes. So I think Enzo was just probably a little bit overexcited. He's shown speed this year, but he's also had a little more than a couple rookie mistakes. So I think they both got off lucky, especially poor Shane. That could have been really bad.
Yeah. Oof, I know, to be where he is in the points and having the results that he's had, to potentially seeing it completely wiped out in a silly first straightaway mistake. I mean, that I'm glad it worked out. But I'll tell you, one of the things that impressed me the most was he came from pretty much last.
He was flying.
What did he end up getting? 4th or 5th?
Yeah, 4th or 5th or 6th. I mean,
that's some serious speed in places to make up in heat race.
Not that much time. And Dakotas wasn't really up there at the beginning. Jimmy came from 5th or 6th to come to the lead. And I had my eyes on him. I was up in the crowd at this point. I hadn't come down to staging yet, because I like to watch 250 Heat 1 from up in the seats. And from lap 2, I would say, I had my eye on Jimmy, because I saw the way he was hitting the whoops, and I was watching the guys in front of him hitting the whoops. I'm like, all right, this is going to get good. And
yeah, he was stellar through the whoops. Stellar.
Unbelievable. And what's crazy about that is back when I used to race Jimmy in 2013, 2012, I feel like I remember Jimmy being not that whoops weren't his strong point back then. And he's really, over the past few years, made them his strong point. And him being one of the shorter riders, that's crazy, because typically being short, you definitely have a disadvantage in the whoops. His bike setup looks amazing. He's coming in, you could just tell, with confidence. He's skipping the first 2 or 3 whoops with his front tire. He's dropping it on top. Like, Jimmy looked good. And that was a bummer to see. He got 15th in the main, so I don't know what happened. But yeah, he looked really, really good in that heat race. So that was cool. I was up in the stands, and there was a huge brawl going on a couple of people away from me. There was a giant fight. And I was
really?
Yeah, I was trying so.
Was it over
so
an Instagram post?
Yeah, it was probably about me. And I was just trying to focus on the race. But what else we got? We got track conditions. I mean, whoops.
You know what? You know what's funny is, just thinking about this, not to get off topic here, but isn't it funny how when we did our live session, what was it, Tuesday night last week, I had called for a little more intensity in the moto world. And then 4 days later, yeah. Whoops, sorry. I put that out there, I guess.
So 250 class. Yeah, well, I'm I'm just looking through my my notes here. I was trying to think if there was anything else exciting going on, 250 wise.
Big exciting 250. Adam Cincerello gets the win, which we've all been waiting for it, and I know he has. But he almost, I don't know if he almost blew it, but he was definitely feeling the pressure.
Yeah, man, he's such a smart kid, but he has his moments where like things start to get away from him a little bit. I don't know. I forget what lap it was, but Nichols at one point got really close, and Adam, first of all, looked back, which I was kind of surprised to see, but it might have just been a look back to know if he had to move to the inside to kind of protect his line and in that specific turn. But then immediately after, he skipped a whoop by mistake. He dropped the front end, and then it popped back up, and he wheelied out like 4 or 5 whoops, and the announcers went crazy, and I was just like, holy cow. And then he turns, gets in the next set of whoops, same thing, drops his front end, a weird one, and wheelies out like the last 5. Right after that, makes a mistake in the sand, and I was just like, oh my God, reel it in.
Yeah, but it looked like he rebounded.
He did.
Yeah, he looked like he rebounded and kind of and found something that he hadn't found in the first few races where he started to get off kilter a little bit, and that ability to recompose himself is what led him to the win. To be able to just take what happened and get over it and get back to it.
You could tell he definitely did the reset, which was cool. Jacob Hayes, a 5th. Hayes has been unbelievably consistent. Coming from Arenacross, I think I would not have expected this much from him.
So I know, and he's old too. I mean, relatively. What, he's 26, 25?
Probably my age, yeah, which, don't call me old, man. But yeah, I mean, him and I both turned pro, I think, around the same time. Maybe I turned pro a little earlier. That's a long time. I mean, 9 years to be pro, and he's made the transition to and from Arenacross a couple times now, with Arenacross no longer existing. And then him doing as well as he did in Arenacross, I think that obviously helped his confidence. But he looks darn good, and he's good in the whoops. That Arenacross helped him in the whoops, and this year with the way the tracks have been, like if you're riding the whoops good, you could be even mediocre everywhere else, and you're still going to do well.
Is that a trend? If you were to look back in history, and I haven't really thought about this until right now, but is that a trend where guys are coming out of Arenacross and actually doing pretty well in their rookie year in Supercross, or in Hayes' case, not his rookie year, but coming directly from Arenacross? I mean, that's where your most success was coming from, when you were directly out of Arenacross. So does Arenacross do a like, where, I guess my question specifically is Arenacross a better preparation to compete at a high level in Supercross than even just racing Supercross, and why?
Well, it's certainly a better transition into Supercross than the Supercross Futures is. There's no question about that. And yeah, I will say that. So when I did Arenacross, I was winning, and then when I would race the Premier class, I was still right up there. I was a young kid, and I was super aggressive and just kind of going for it, and that just gave me this confidence. So when I did make the transition to Supercross, and you're going from a 20-second lap time to a 50-second lap time, it felt easier in some sense. If you made a mistake, it was a little more forgiving, which sounds crazy because Supercross is by no means forgiving. And the tight racing, and as aggressive as it is in Arenacross, you constantly feel like somebody's going to be taking you out, where in Supercross, you don't really feel that way. So you can relax a little bit more. So yeah, I will say that there's probably no better preparation than Arenacross. And you're seeing that with Chris Blose as well. I mean, Blose and Hayes are 7th and 8th in points right now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tyler Bowers is obviously doing really well. In the past, you've seen that. I remember years ago, Darcy Lang, or Lane, however you say it, was riding, I believe, for the Babbitt's Kawasaki team in Arenacross, and then he got a fill-in spot for, or maybe it was a full-time spot for Pro Circuit Kawasaki, and ended up maybe getting a couple podiums. I was really young at this point while watching this, but he definitely did super well also. It's just it's a confidence thing, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. I mean, you're coming off an Arenacross championship, or in any of these guys' cases, they're doing very well, having a lot of success in Arenacross. That confidence is there once you get to the big show. So I would agree that has to help. And we'll have to track these guys' careers and see if they can maintain, because it does seem like you're either going to go one way or the other. You're either going to get more and more successful, or the show is gonna drown you out, so to speak. So we'll have to keep tabs on it.
You know, a guy like Hayes finishing where he is right now, being on a Yamaha, you never know. I mean, if he keeps it up, maybe next year that could turn into a star ride, and if that turns into a Monster Energy star ride, then he's going to be on better equipment and have the confidence of being on a team, and that could boost it too. Where you these people have these forks in the road, and it's amazing which way your career can go. I mean, I remember Jacob Hayes coming to Club MX, couldn't have been that long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and he really wasn't riding that well on the Supercross track. He didn't have much support. At that point, you would have thought, you know, that was kind of the end of it for him. And now to see the way that it's gone, it's definitely, I mean, that's why, I have a couple bad races in a row, a few bad races in a row, and it's just like, don't give up, because at any point something can click, you can find that confidence, and next thing you know, things could be drastically changing.
Right. So 250 overall picture, we have, get this.
Have you seen the points?
Yeah, you're talking 6 points. No, 5 points. 5 points separating fourth and first. Talking 3 points separating first and second, and 1 point separating McElrath in third and Cincerello in second. This is a tight series. And 450s, we're in exactly the same position, but 250s, here we are. They only have a few rounds left. So what do you do if you're these guys who are on the top with such a tight margin there? You have to be perfect from here on out, or it's over.
Yeah, they have 6 rounds left, which is actually more than I thought. I'm sitting here counting it right now, and
okay,
it's more. It's more than I thought.
I thought it was 4.
Still, at the same time, it's not. I mean, that's not a lot of time, and it's not often that you have 4 guys in contention 4 rounds in. I know we've talked about this before, but typically round 2, you kind of have your 2 guys, maybe 3 that have separated themselves. By round 3 and 4, forget about it. You have your 1 and your 2 that are probably in contention, and that's it. So to have Ferrandis 86, McElrath 87, Cincerello 88, and Nichols 91, that's a 1 race swing. You know what I mean? That's a 1 race swing for any of these guys to pop themselves up to the lead.
Yep. I mean, that's, yeah, you look at it this way. Oh, my apologies.
That's an AJ move.
Stupid. What an amateur. So yeah, I mean, look at it this way. You have the McElrath situation play out in the heat race in a main. It puts him 4th or 5th in a main. That knocks him out of the top 3. You know, that makes that championship that much harder for him. So you can see, even on a clear track, the whole shot, it's anybody's guess on what could happen. So I mean, they just have to really keep their nose to the grindstone and really execute. I mean, the call for perfection this year across both classes is just crazy. And you know, we'll get into the 450s because they're in exactly the same boat. But what do you think it is about this year that makes it almost like a perfect storm? You know, we've had competitive years in the past. It would seem like once the Dungey reign came to an end, then it opened up some more opportunity. But this year, it's really all anybody could talk about. It is the perfect storm in especially the 450 class. What do you think that's a function of?
Well, and I'm looking here in the 450 class that we've stated before, it's definitely a case that I don't think anybody's claimed it as their own yet. So everyone feels like they have a chance, and not one single person has kind of made themselves the dominant one up until, I mean, now you could argue that it's Webb. So, and what did I say last week in the podcast? I made one prediction. Do you remember what my one single prediction was?
Yes, I do. You said that it would have been another winner, a different winner.
So the only prediction I made and I was confident in, I was wrong.
So I think everybody was. Well, they were saying that it has been 36 or 37 years since they had 4 rounds with 4 different winners. So that goes to show you how A, rare it is, but B, I mean, that was a very real possibility. I don't think anybody, if you had Webb for the win again this week, I'd be shocked. Power to you. And I mean, obviously Webb has been riding fantastic. So he was in my top 3, but I wouldn't have predicted a back-to-back win. And I think it's awesome that he got it.
Yeah. And holy cow. I mean, now I'm really interested to see what plays out, because Webb is one of those guys to really ride off that confidence wave. So,
absolutely. You saw him do it in the 250s
right,
so many times.
Right. And he had a technique flaw that Ryan Hughes pointed out on Instagram a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago.
Whoa. Pump the brakes. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Hey, look, if Cooper Webb happens to hear this, I think your technique's perfect.
I've written this in a Racer X article as well a year ago. So, but the point I was making...
Well, I say that because Cooper Webb did comment on this on the Instagram thing, and for what it's worth, he didn't mention you by name, and neither the individual in question called you out specifically, and Cooper Webb didn't even realize who it was.
Right.
So, but it made it a little more like, oh man, like that sucks.
Yeah,
to see that, to see some of the factory guys.
But then again, on track walk, I walked by every single one of those guys, and not a single one even so much as.
I'd be curious to know if when they commented, they knew who it was. I mean, you have a pretty distinguishable voice, in my opinion, so I'd be surprised if they didn't. But then, if they were to just walk by without at least making a joke of it or saying something, I'd be kind of surprised. But
yeah. So
anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Anywho. I had written an article last year about it, and it's more specifically, I'm talking about his foot position, which is pretty major. And Ryan Hughes put up a post on Instagram last week after Cooper Webb had won, and explained the difference in his technique this year being on the KTM as opposed to past years being on the Yamaha, and how it seems as though somebody has told him, or he figured it out himself, that he worked on that foot position. And I'm telling you, like, it's something's changed. Like, that now combined with his confidence, like, his technique is there, his confidence is now there. It would be crazy if he won this championship. That would be absolutely insane. But
insane. And I have to say this because I am genuinely, believe it or not, I am genuinely not just some bandwagon fan. And the reason I say that is because I really was on the fence about Cooper Webb coming to KTM, being a KTM guy, and kind of not knowing how I felt about Cooper Webb being on there. And we talked about it before. I know we're probably under the microscope now for anything we say, so I won't bring anything up that we mentioned. But I was on the fence about it. But there's something to be liked and revered in somebody's confidence who's riding well. And for that, I have the utmost respect for him, because he's risen to the occasion in a time where he's on a new team, he's on a new bike. He didn't do much of anything last year, which he would admit. And now we see him performing at the very pinnacle. So there's something to be revered in that. And I like it. I like to see it.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's awesome. And he withstood the pressure that whole race too. He managed to lead well. Like, he didn't seem to be riding tight when he came off the track. He didn't seem totally exhausted. I mean, point is, he looks like he belongs. So, and you look at those 450 points, and even Barsha in fifth, it's only an 11-point spread back to fifth, and it's only a 4-point spread back to fourth. So you got Muskin, Tomac, Roxon, Webb. 4 guys, 4 points. Am I seeing that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a
It's
one
anybody's
race.
game.
It's anybody's. You know,
It's anybody's game.
Arguably, Baggett and Wilson could still technically be in it too. People have made up 20-point, 15-point deficits as well. So I'm excited. It is, even though I'm kind of in the mix, and I'm not in the mix yet this year. But what I'm saying is I'm out there racing. Like, I'm such a huge fan of the racing that I get excited seeing how it's going to play out.
It does make for a dramatic Saturday night for sure. But yeah, Wilson. I mean, I can't say enough about Wilson. I think he's on everybody's radar. What he's been able to accomplish with the adversity that he faced and all of the stuff that was up in the air before the season started. I mean, good for him. Good for him. I like to see him right in the mix. I mean, and he is right there. He's not too far out of it.
Look at his results: 4th, 8th, 5th, 6th. I mean, shoot, that's super, super solid.
Solid.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, yeah, he's.
How can you not like Dean Wilson? I think that's what everybody says.
Yeah, yep, and which is why it's so surprising. Well, Zach Osborne, with there's no questioning that Zach Osborne deserved that spot, and if there wasn't another spot on that team for Dean, I guess I kind of understand that. But at the same time, like, from a team's perspective, other than the injuries, which I guess that is a pretty big deal, I can't think of really a much better rider to have on a team than Dean. He's fast, he gets the results, and his personality is second to none. So you would think that's a win-win, but I can understand the scare of past injuries and current. So
yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. Then look, the only thing that they have to measure consistency is the past, and because he's been prone to injury and it hasn't been as consistent as they would want, I can see it. I don't disagree with you. I mean, from like a marketing standpoint, to have him behind the Husky brand is a great thing. I think he's a benefit to any brand, really. But yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from for sure.
Yeah. What else you got? You have any notes written down this week? Because I have a couple of track things a couple of track characteristics I'd like to speak on.
I was lazy with the note taking this week.
Gosh, amateur, phones ringing, no notes.
What a loser! Oh man, we're gonna have a lot of new listeners this week from this whole issue. And
yeah, we're blowing
so unprofessional.
One thing I noticed, and we're bouncing a little bit all over the place, but the wall jump, I like them. Let's just start with that. I think, and the wall jumps with the landing. So they're, it's not a wall where you have to roll it. It's a wall where you're kind of scrubbing it and jumping like 3 feet to a landing. I think it's fun. But what I will say is they have to have the red light flashy thingy or a red cross flag set up in front of it just in case. Because what happened a couple times, on Saturday was somebody crashed on the landing of it in the sand, and the flashing lights were going off, but they're only going off yellow. So what yellow flags mean for pros, and amateurs, yellow flag means no jumping, no passing. In the pros, yellow flag pretty much just means, hey, there's a rider down, continue to do whatever the heck you want. So for us, yellow flag really means nothing. It just means keep going. Like, all right, maybe there's somebody somewhere, but if it's not a red cross,
use a little caution. Yeah,
use a little caution. But what happened was poor Aaron Plessinger crashed on the other side of that thing, and the yellow things are going off. He's dead center on the track. These guys are continuing to jump it. He gets landed on by Reed, by somebody else, like his bike does at least. Aaron had to run all the way up to the takeoff of the wall and start waving traffic himself to get them to go around his bike. And in qualifying, Nick Schmidt crashed on the landing of that, and same thing happened. So I'm on a hot lap. I see yellow lights going off. I assume that those yellow lights mean somebody's down in the corner in the sand, but nope. Nick Schmidt's bike and his body are sitting there on the landing. I'm in the air, and like, what? There's nothing that you could do at that point.
Yikes! I know we are jumping around, which is uncharacteristic, but as you bring that up, was it 250Bs? Somebody got hurt, right? They had red flagged the qualifier 2, I believe.
Oh, did they?
Did you?
No, I didn't catch that.
I was wondering if you. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if there was any details on it. I off the top of my head, I can't remember who it was, but I was wondering if you had any inside scoop on that, because somebody did go down. They ended up red flagging the second qualifier for 250B, and they delayed it probably a good 10 minutes, until they got the kid out of there. I was wondering if you had heard anything or knew anything or whatever.
I have no idea who that was. I guess I was kind of wondering why they were running a little bit behind schedule, but
yep.
No, was
well.
Was
that's a good
aware.
point. That's a good point about the flagging. And is that's it seems to be unique to the wall jump in that particular instance.
Yeah, because I think that it's a slightly new feature, maybe. So they don't know whether they should have a red cross set up there. Obviously, if you're on a triple face, another obstacle on the track that's blind, they have those lights set up, and they'll always have a flagger in front with the red cross flag. So if somebody crashes on the landing of that particular jump, even if they're not hurt, if they're in a dangerous spot, they're going to wave the red cross flag just so that person doesn't get landed on. But yeah, for whatever reason with this wall jump, not that these people were hurt, but their bikes and bodies were in a not so good spot coming off of a wall jump where when you come up the face of that thing, you're looking at the sky. You can't see the backside. They should certainly have red lights or the red cross flag set up there. And then somebody, manning up and running to the top of that thing to also direct the riders on where to go. That's a problem. Even if the red cross flags are up, you could come rolling over the top of that thing. If somebody's down on the other side, you're still not going to know where they are until you're cresting the top.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point.
I'm sure they'll figure it out. I think AMA does do a really good job of being on top of that. Like if a tough block gets pulled out, somebody's radioing somebody from up in the top, and they're getting that fixed right away. If somebody goes down, when I'm watching the race, I'm always aware of when that flag comes out, it's coming out quick, and then that person, you can tell they're on their radio set. As soon as that rider gets up and they're clear, that flag comes back in. Where if you watch any local race, a flagger could see that person crash and they're waving the yellow flag, and that person got up and rode away 30 seconds ago, and they're still waving the yellow flag. They're not paying attention. Yeah. And that doesn't happen for us, which is nice. As it should be. It's a professional event. So,
right.
Right. You know what? Jumping around even more, but I just thought of this. I feel like we haven't spoke about any privateers, which shame on me, being as that I'm a privateer. How about Ronnie Stewart, man? He's 3 for 4 on main events.
Pretty impressive.
Who would have thunk that? Not me. Not I. 3 for 4. He's the only privateer, to my knowledge. Well, Kyle Chisholm and Ben LeMay are both consistently in main events, but that I would have expected. Ronnie Stewart, I would not have expected to have been 3 for 4, especially when you have guys like Adam Enticknap and really fast riders. Well, even I guess myself, if you want to call me slightly fast, that haven't made a single main event yet. So,
well, you were fast prior to your that Instagram post.
Yeah.
Now you're really slow. No, yeah, I mean that's a good point. I was actually surprised to see that Enticknap didn't make the main, especially because he rode press day. Adam, speaking of Adam, and Tyler's a good rider, of course. Can't bash anybody, leave anybody out. This is a safe space for everyone. No, but I was surprised to see Seven Deuce Deuce not make the main because he rode press day, and he's been riding well. He's been riding fast. So, but it just goes to show you, like, I'm watching qualifying with my wife, and we're just.
She must have loved
He's like,
that.
how's AJ? He's like, I know, right? He's like, how's AJ doing? And I was like, oh, he hasn't ridden yet, blah, blah, blah. But I was trying to explain to her, being that she doesn't really have a clue. It's like, look, that top 22 guys make the main. 22. If you're not at least in 25, 26 out of qualifying, your chances are much slimmer. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway this season is you have to be freaking quick. The margins are really, really tight. The competition is freaking good, and qualifying has been a pretty good indication is if you're making the main or not.
Mm-hmm. And it's been, for privateer's sake, a little bit slightly inconsistent about who. You could tell when somebody's feeling good, they're feeling good. Like Ryan Brees has been a good example. He's 2 for 4, I think, on the main events. And the 2 that he's made, you can tell right from time qualifying that he's feeling comfortable on the track. And he's able to carry that confidence into the night, where when you're a guy like myself qualifies 33rd, even though there's only an 0.8 of a second differential from that to 20th place, 21st place, which is a main event qualifying spot, it just becomes a little bit more difficult to kind of mentally overcome those 7 or 8 or 9 riders. And not only when we talk about stacked, a lot of people think about the top 8, top 10 guys, but a big difference this year is how many top privateer guys that there are, and how many, big name privateer guys there are. You can go down this list and you have Cole Martinez, Kyle Chisholm, Tyler Bowers, Alex Ray, Ryan Brees, Ronnie Stewart, Austin Politelli, Entic the Angelo Pellegrini guy is riding really well, even though he's been on the ground quite a bit. But it's a deep field, and looking at the time qualifying from this week, you go outside of the top 40 and you have guys like Tevin Tapia and Ryan Surratt and some good solid riders that aren't even making night shows.
Here's a good way to put it into perspective. 2019 rider point standings. There's only 27 guys on that list. That means only 27 guys have made the night show. 27 individual unique guys.
By night show, you mean main event?
I'm sorry. Yeah, main event. Yep.
Yeah. And you have, to put that into perspective, you have about anywhere between 55 to 70 guys showing up for each individual race. They only take top 40 down to the night show, which is what you see on TV. And then you only have 22 in each respective main event. So it's not easy. But like I said, my so-called thermostat is set at main event or bust pretty much. If I don't make a main event, I'm not happy. If I make a main event, then that's kind of the ultimate goal. Even though, in the past I should have set goals much, much higher than that. I think right now, solid goal is to just get myself in that main event and even get more track time. Making a main event, if I could get 20 minutes on that track, that's 20 minutes of practice that I don't have during the week. So right. anytime I'm on that bike is going to help.
Absolutely. For sure.
Well, what do you want to end it off with? Well, let's end it off with a couple of predictions, which are going to be wrong, but we'll give it a guess anyhow. 250 top 3 next weekend. Well,
you know what? I think part of this prediction should also be a discussion on where do you think Eli Tomac's head is at? Because he's a guy who I had for the win. I know the guys on Race Day Live, I think, had him for the win. We're all waiting for him to win.
I think he's mentally in a good place. If I had to guess, he's 3rd in points, 3 points down. That's a million times better than he's ever been in the past after race 4. This weekend, he got 4th. Well, so he missed the podium. But, like watching him in that race, he had the speed. But it just seems like he's been really content and just smart. And I don't know if that's a choice.
So you think he's playing the long game?
I'd like to think so, but who knows? Really, who knows?
But that's where his biggest bobbles have been the beginnings of the seasons, right? And so if he could play it safe, as you say, and contain everything while he gets himself in the groove and kind of settles in mentally, I think that might bode well for him for the future, because obviously he has the speed and the skill. If he's in a minimize mistakes mode, the beginning of the season where he's usually had issues, I think that could very well be the case. And if he starts opening it up, it'll be really interesting to see, because we haven't had a big battle yet. And so I think we're all waiting for that. I think it could shape up to be a really ruthless class up at the top.
And 13 rounds left. I mean, anything can happen. And I think everyone's playing it pretty smart right now. I can't think of any one guy that just seems like they're going for broke. It seems like if, a Roxon or a Tomac or a Muskin are in fourth, they're just being smart about it. But who knows? Maybe that's all they have for that particular night. I mean, that's something like I can't. I'm really good at giving insight, but that particular thing I can't speak on their behalf, and I really don't know. I know for
Right.
me, like if I was in that position, I would be thinking the long game the whole time. But then
sure.
again, me, Mr. Overthinker, that's part of the reason, I'm not one of those guys, is because I'm constantly playing it safe.
And you're
can't,
like, let's be real. I mean, it was discussed ad nauseum on this Instagram thing. You're just a very jealous person. You're a very entitled rich kid, and you're very jealous. So I mean, so you can't really speak to that.
Did somebody call me a rich kid?
Oh yeah,
Nah, really?
Dude, it was. Oh my god, it was so funny. So.
Oh man.
Actually, a lot of people did. A lot of people called you a rich kid with mommy, daddy money who don't really care, and
no way.
Oh yeah, like having absolutely just talking out of their asses. I'm sorry to bring this up again, but it's just so freaking funny how nobody has a clue. Nobody has a clue the sacrifice your family's made and like the way that you came up in this sport. Like nobody knows. It's just a lot of people went the rich kid route. Yeah, for sure.
Wow,
It's
interesting.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Well.
Yep.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Dummies will be dummies. Who cares? Well, it's funny because here we are coming off of this race, KTM's 1, 2, 3,
Oof.
always up at the top. You have where I'm going with this is there has been a lot of success on steel frame bikes over the years. A lot of success. The last 5 championships, or four or five, have been won on steel frame bikes. And I'm wondering if you see any of the other manufacturers go in a different route, because there's obviously something to be said about these steel frame bikes and how competitive they are.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the guys that are on those things, and they just look maybe a little better. I don't know. I mean, anyone that's on a KTM and a Husky, those bikes look absolutely freaking unbelievable. And they look like they have traction. They look planted.
Yeah, I you know what? I really want to do some sort of study with the engineering behind it all, because, and obviously all these companies have all the backing to do all this. So I might just be talking completely out of my ass, but there's got to be something with like the forgivability of the steel and the absorption of impacts with the steel. Like there's something that those bikes are doing that the other bikes aren't doing, right?
Well, you just see those bikes as opposed to, like, let's just use the Yamahas as an example. So like Plessinger and Barsha on the factory Yamahas, and it maybe has a little something to do with their riding styles, but those bikes just seem like they're a little bit more all over the place, where the KTMs and the Huskies just always seem really planted. And I keep an eye on in the what, like planted is probably the best word. They just don't look like they're nervous or happy and bouncing around. They're just very just planted and straight.
And so whether it's a function of the bikes, you see Blake Baggett up there too. So my next hypothesis was going to be, obviously they have the program dialed to be able to get their riders that confident in get them in shape like that. So their program is figured out. But then you have Baggett, who isn't on one of those big factory teams, who's on a KTM and is doing just fine himself.
Yeah, but on BTO Sports though, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive everything he's getting is is what the factory guys have, with the exception of maybe one or two little minor things. For all intensive purposes, that bike is a factory bike.
And purposes.
What did I just
purposes. Say? Intensive purposes.
Oh, I did? That's like, you know what I used the other day is I did it a couple times, is I said on purpose. Or on purpose, on mistake. Wait, what do I say? On mistake.
You say on mistake, right?
Yeah. But on purpose is
or on
correct.
Accident. On accident.
On accident. Yeah. Gosh, that sounds wrong. Now, the more I say
that's the brutal one.
On accident.
Yeah, that's brutal. Yeah, that's one of those ones. It's intents and purposes.
And it's
so anyway, go ahead.
It's on purpose, but by accident.
There you go. Now you got this English thing figured out.
Okay. I'll learn to speak eventually. I don't know what I was talking about. What was I talking about?
I think the support that the
for all intents and purposes. That saying doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna stop using it now. Or I'm just gonna keep saying it my way. That's a factory bike. So, but you have guys down the line a little bit, like, let's say Cole Martinez, somebody like that. That pretty sure he's on a Husky. Like even the ones that you know for sure are privateer bikes. Those look darn good.
Cole Martinez is on a Suzuki.
I think that's a mistake though.
Oh, maybe
it's white. I don't know. I was looking at that thing the other night, and I swear it was a Husky. But I did notice on TV it had a yellow thing next to his name.
Well, some of the Yamaha privateers are white too. What do we know?
Yeah, we've proven to know nothing on this podcast. I don't know why any of you guys listen to us, to be honest with you. But I think
So as far as predictions,
before we continue anymore, okay, I'm at 5%, so we got plenty of time.
Oh god, we got plenty of time, sure.
Top 3, 250. Let's hear it.
I think Cinderella is gonna start to roll with it, and I'm gonna go same 1, 2, 3 is this week.
That's a good guess, but I can't guess. No, you know what? Yeah.
Although I think Shane McElrath is probably more in contention too. That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with my original thought.
Yeah, I think that's a solid guess. What about 450? Top 3.
I'm just gonna say something to be proved wrong later, so it doesn't even matter what I say. But if you know what, I think Roxon is gonna break through. I think he's gonna use last week as a motivator. I think we're gonna see him back on the podium. I think Webb is gonna be on the podium, and I think Muskin. I think whether Roxon takes it or Webb runs away with it, I don't know. If you were to have a gun to my head, I would say Muskin, Roxon, Webb.
Muskin. So all KTM podium again.
No, Roxon's on a Honda.
Oh, you said Roxon.
You didn't.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Muskin. Oh, so new winner. I'm gonna have a bold prediction again of another new winner. This time it's gonna be right. So who does that leave us? Who hasn't won yet?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Roxon, Tomac,
of the guys
Muskin?
that can win. Of the guys that can win.
Roxon, Muskin, Tomac, right?
Yeah.
And look at that, though. Like, our top 4 in points. 3 of the top 4 in points haven't won a race yet. That's interesting, huh? That's an interesting tidbit. So I'm going to go with Tomac. I keep picking Tomac every week. It's bound to happen eventually. I'm going to say Tomac first. Muskin is always a perfect guy to pick for second place. And third, I'm going to say Roxon third. So I'm not even going to have Webb on the podium. Okay. And I don't know why. No real reason for that.
Oh, okay.
No, well, I don't think it's a fluke. I just think that
if we've learned anything from these predictions is that nobody can predict them. I don't know. Because what if Barsha heals up and he comes out on a tear next week? That could very well happen too. You just don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at Cole Seeley had some. I don't know what happened in the main, but on the heat race, he looked damn good.
Pretty sure he was up there in the main too, and then fell in the sand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that explains it.
Yep. Yeah. So who knows? You know, listening to us guys, we're never going to be right. So you can write off our top 4, our top 3.
Yeah. But it's fun to pretend.
Real quick before we hang up, did you see Justin Hill's practice crash?
No, I didn't.
Holy smokes! Everyone was watching him.
Should I look it up?
They had him up. Yeah, they had him up on the screen, and he's putting in a heater lap. Second set of whoops, he's blazing through them, and on the second to last whoop, something happened, and it put him a little bit funky on the last whoop, and it caught him off guard, and his left hand just slips right off, and he ends up getting ejected from the bike and does this weird, like, helicopter spin, and lands on his butt or his back on the other rhythm section.
Oh wait, here it is. Somebody has it. Holy moly! He hit the flagger.
I thought we had another tailbone situation going on, but he laid there for a minute too, and then he got up, and I guess he was fine. But
yikes!
Talk about things
that looks gnarly.
Quick. Like, he went from perfectly in shape, bike was straight, all of a sudden, boom, like a millisecond, and he's just flying through the air.
The rear end came up. He missed the brake and endoed over the berm.
It just shows you, like, same thing with the Malcolm Stewart crash type of thing. At the speed those guys are going, things happen really, really fast.
This just highlights the precision that's needed at that level. Damn, yeah, that's pretty sketchy. Guys, if you're listening, I just typed in Justin Hill crash 2019, and it somebody found that on Instagram. And it would appear that an Instagram personality has commented on it.
The Instagram personality?
Yep. Yep. But that's all we'll say about that. So anyways, yeah, that's gnarly. Well, I'm glad to see that he didn't get too seriously injured with that one, because that looked like it could have been a lot worse. Because he landed directly on the side of like a table.
Yeah, and he was flying through the air backwards, so you could tell that when he landed, he thought he had a few more feet to go until the ground, but then when he landed on the side of the rhythm, so it kind of caught him off guard.
Dang.
I know that feeling. That stinks.
Yikes. Well, glad to see Justin okay after that one.
All right. Well, I guess we could wrap it up on that note. I'm at 2%, so.
All right. Well, look, everybody, thank you for tuning in. For those who have supported us from the beginning, we very much appreciate it. For new listeners who hate us because of something, I'm sorry, and I hope we could change your mind. Keep tuning in. For those who hate us for no reason at all, or have a bone to pick with AJ because
they hate
us because somebody's feelings, I don't really know if we want you as listeners or fans anyway. So see you later. And yeah. We got some cool stuff in the works. I know unfortunately this whole debacle kind of delayed us a little bit for some other reasons, but we do appreciate everybody listening. Yeah, it delayed us a week.
Yeah.
But not to worry, we'll rebound, we'll bounce back, and again, it wasn't me. Everybody, leave AJ alone. But leave me alone too, because I didn't do anything. And no, but on a serious note, we appreciate everybody who's tuned in. We appreciate all the support. We'll keep doing these for you guys as long as you keep listening to them. And if you have any questions for us, any feedback, anything, actually, you know what? Maybe this week we won't share the email. Those in the know. And next week we'll resume once this whole thing is blown over.
Yes, sir.
Last thing we need is our email account to be exploded with negativity.
True. It's true. Let's keep that.
So people find some. Yeah, the next we'll let the next target deal with it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you. Appreciate it, and toodaloo.
Adios.